If we needed to, we could use this. Again, the board is not looking at using this money, but we need to know it's there if we had to use it. One thing that we do have is an option to use some furlough days, so we could lay everybody off for a day and come up with some money. So this just provides an option. We're hoping the first year we're planning not to use any leeway money, but we need to have that available, knowing if we came into an emergency situation because of the state funding shortfall, that it would be there. So this is the plan. Well, if the voted leeway didn't pass, we would still have our one-time donation, and we would still have our legislative authority to transfer capital outlay. So in other words, the year will look somewhat similar, and this is our budget. So we know that we can do this for 1 year. Then we move to the second year. So let's go for a minute to 2011, 2012. This is where we start to see some pretty severe impact if the voted leeway doesn't pass. And so we're going to move on to this year. And so let's again remember that we've got that shortfall, and that shortfall is just ongoing, the state shortfall. It's going to be there. So we're going to continue to have this lack of money that would be a layoff of staff if we can't somehow find either an ongoing source or something, and so, or a one-time funding. The problem with this next year, so we're moving on to 2011-12, is that our one-time donation drops away. We won't have that anymore, and what that means is there is nothing to take the place of this. And here's the layoff that would occur. However, if we vote in a voted leeway, we know that we have that money to depend on. What we can do is use part of that money. Again, we don't need to use all of it, but we'll put part of that money, we would tax just enough to cover that one-time donation right here that's falling away. Well, again, the state legislature has given us, we have to assess our capital outlay needs, so we don't really know how much this, how much money this would be, but it would be enough to help us out. And so what we want to do then is still use our second year of allowance to move capital outlay. And so for the 2011-12 year, now remember, this is a plan where this is budgeted and we're ready to do this. This is just things that we're thinking about in terms of budgeting in a wise way when we have such something that's unpredictable out here. But again, by doing this, we'd have our general fund with our state cut, but the state shortfall is again replaced by some leeway money if the voted leeway passes. Then also we would use our little capital outlay transfer ability for our second year. We can only use this 2 years, so we use it, and we can avoid layoffs. And there will be some minimal layoffs. I mean, we still want to cut back and be conservative in our system, but for the most part, our system is intact. If the voted leeway does not pass, then what we have is this problem right here. We have no voted leeway local money to use at all. We still can use our capital outlay transferability. So we can use this little piece to keep from laying off some of these people. But right here, we have no money to make up for that, and that becomes a layoff this year. to the tune of about $700,000. That's what our one-time donation is. You know, $700,000. So we would have to do a layoff that year, and again, we've got this retained just for that year. So we carry on. And you can see the thing about school district planning and finance, we have to know we have the money. And we make our plans based on the money that we know we have. We can't say something like, oh, well, we might get this one-time funding, so let's do this. I mean, if we know we have one-time funding, we can actually build that into our plan. We're dealing with a lot of variables, and we aren't really sure, and we'll get into this at the very end. But we're dealing with a lot of variables that are uncertain, and so we know that we can do this capital outlay transfer for 2 years. So without a leeway, we make this cut back. Then we go into the 2012, 2013 year. Now this may sound really far ahead, but we are, again, we look ahead. This is how you plan for a school district and how you plan for the funding and the employees and the programs. And so we get into this year. Now remember, we still have our state shortfall. So let's get in here and cut it out. And it's just still sitting, it's not there. If the voted leeway passes, and so here's the state shortfall. We lost our one-time donation way back here, and we used part of our leeway money. Well, this year we lose our ability to use any of our capital outlay money, so we can't use this. What that means is we have to, we would maintain this, the same tax for this that we had this year, but we would add more of the leeway money to make up that shortfall. And again, this would be done in a conservative manner. So we may not need or use all of that, but we may. And so we may need to use it. So in that way, we are limiting, again, our layoffs. We're using our leeway money, which gives us local control to shape our district how we need to shape it. We can no longer use this. Now you would think, oh, well, then that gives us this extra capital outlay money, but you have to remember that these 2 years we're cutting way back on our capital outlay, and the likelihood is when we get to our 3rd year with cut back capital outlay, we're going to be needing this money just for painting and, you know, asphalting the parking lots and general upkeep. Again, this is looking way ahead, but the money would be here, and that's what that would look like with no voted leeway.